The second set of tenses in the sequence is what we call the perfect tenses. I'm not sure why we call these perfect. Obviously my handwriting up here isn't perfect. But these are called the perfect tenses. And we use these ones when there are two actions or two events or an action at a before and after a specific time in order to differentiate the order and to clarify that. So if we take once again, we have past, present, and future differences. So if we take a look at the past, then here's now, and in the past, something occurred in the past, and then something else happened prior to that. So this is the first action or event, and then this is the second action or event. In order for people to be able to recognize which one happened first and which one happened second, for this one, we use simple past. And that tells us that this one happened second. For this one, we use the past perfect. So we would say, he had watched television when I arrived yesterday. So here we have had. So we have a form of the verb have as a auxiliary helping verb, and then we have this, what we call the participle, and this forms the past perfect. Here we have the simple past. Because of these two different verb tenses, I know that this happened first because it's using the past perfect as the verb tense. I know that this happened second because it's using the simple past. These could be reversed. Yesterday, when I arrived, comma, he had watched television. Once again, had watched tells us that this is the first action. Arrived tells us that this is the second action. So while many times we'll write showing this was the first action and then that's the second action, and we'll write them in the same order that they occur, it's not always the case. Sometimes we can reverse the order and we can still tell which happened first and which happened second because of the verb tense. Since this is simple past, it happened second. Since this is past perfect, it happened first. And here we use what's called the participle. So, he had eaten dinner when I arrived. He had finished his homework when I arrived. He had cooked dinner when I arrived. He had slept for an hour when I arrived. So this is something, and we can see that what we have here is, this is completed action. So this action began first, it was finished, and then this action happened second. So he had watched television means that he was finished, then I arrived. He had watched television, he was finished, I arrived. If I say he had eaten dinner when I arrived, then he ate dinner and he finished, and then I arrived. So we use the past perfect to show that there are two events that are happening. Which one happened first, which one happened second. Now the second one doesn't necessarily have to be an action. He had eaten dinner at 6 o'clock. So this tells me at 6 o'clock, this action was finished. So this is the first one, and this is the second one. So the second one doesn't necessarily have to be an action. It can just be a time, and this is finished action, action that occurred prior to this particular time. Note the difference between this and simple past. Simple past is he watched television at 6 o'clock. So at 6 o'clock, so the action is occurring at the same time. But in this case, the action was finished before that specific time. So at 6 o'clock, this action occurred prior to that. If we take a look at this in the present time, so if we take a look at this in the present time, here is now, and then we have some event that's occurred in the past, and here we use present perfect. And you may say, wait a minute, that's the same picture. So this picture and this picture are the same picture. So here we have some action that occurred in the past. Here we have some action that occurred in the past. Well, what's the difference between this picture and this picture is this one happened at a specific time. This one happened at some unspecified time in the past. So we can say, and this is happening before now. So sometime before now. So we could say, he has watched television. When? We don't know. Just sometime before this time. He has eaten octopus. When? Sometime before this time. He has failed a math class. When? Sometime before this time. Here we can say he failed his math class last quarter, specific time, then we would use the simple past, he failed his math class. But here we would say he has failed a math class sometime. We don't know when. So here we're going to use present tense because this is present perfect. Here we use past tense because this is past perfect. And since it's before now, there's only one now, so we don't have to say he has watched television before now, because by using the present form of have here, this tells us that this is something that has happened in the past. We don't know when, but it is past action that's still true today, but we don't know when the occurrence of that actually took place. Once again, when we do the future, so the future diagram of the tenses is going to just look like this one, move forward. So here we have the first action hasn't happened yet, but this is the first action that's scheduled or expected, and then this is the second action or the time by when this will be finished. And once again, this is completed action. So this is a future action. After this ends, then the second time or the second action will take place. So in this case, we're going to say he will have. Because it is future perfect, we're going to use the future form of have. He will have watched. And again, we use the participle just like we did up there. He will have watched television when I arrive tomorrow. So since this is telling us the time, we just use the simple form because we already know from this one that this is in the future. So we just use the simple form of the verb to show that this is the second action. So the simple form of the verb shows us that this is the second action because it says when I arrive, right? Or we could say when I arrive tomorrow, he will have watched television. Since the time one came first, we need to use a comma here. So what do we know? Here's will have. So since we're using future perfect, this tells me that this is the first action. And then arrive, this is the second action because it's just using the simple form of the verb there. Same thing here. He will have watched television. This will happen first. When I arrive, this will happen second. And again, we could use this with the time. He will have watched television at 6 o'clock tomorrow. So here, at 6 o'clock tomorrow, that's the second one. So when 6 o'clock comes, the watching of the television, this action will happen and be finished. So we can tell the time sequence by the verb tenses. So here it says, he will have watched. So that tells me this is going to occur first, and then 6 o'clock will come after that. He will have eaten dinner at 6 o'clock tomorrow. He will have finished his homework at 6 o'clock tomorrow. He will have read a book by 6 o'clock tomorrow. He will have cleaned his room by 6 o'clock. Whatever it is, we have will have, and then we have the participle here. So these are the perfect tenses. We use the perfect tenses to show which are two actions occurring in the past, which are two actions occurring in the future, the sequence, or what's some action that has occurred before the present time. All right, thank you.